So, hey folks, welcome to the Community Team BoF. There are 4 of us presenting today by the magic of technology. There's me, there's Shruti, and over on Jitsi we have Andy Cater, please wave. And we have a Molly who has dropped video.
I have my video on. I think that's a bandwidth issue.
Oh, it's not here. Hopefully it'll fix itself. This is a BoF. I will go through my normal spiel of this is for you to talk, not just for all of us to talk, not just those of us who are on the team. I'll introduce the people we have and what we do, and then most importantly, let's discuss things. If somebody could pick up on Gobby, if there's any points that are made that are really important, it will be awesome if somebody can write it down. As a hint, I won't be here. And I will do the usual thing of to try and write up a summary document to send to mailing lists afterwards, so those people who can't take part can at least keep up. So, we currently have 6 people who are delegated by the DPL. There's me, Jean-Philippe near Paris, Luke over in, I think, San Francisco area. Yeah. We have Molly, we have Shruti, please wave. Hi. And we have Andrew Cater. We are always looking for more team members. That's not just because we're going to take over the world, that's a nice side effect, but we have things to do, and the more people we have, the easier those things get. So what do we do? And the answer is our job is to help make Debian a welcoming place. Notice I have bolded help, and I'm making a point of showing that, is for Debian to be a welcoming place, all of Debian needs to work on that happening. We're here to help, we're here to give advice, we want to do what we can, but we can't do it on our own. There's 1,000 Debian developers and there's only 6 of us. We also are delegated to act as a point of contact for complaints and incidents, to provide help to people when needed. We are as support for people running Debian communications channels. So imagine the mailing lists, the forums, IRC channels, and anywhere that Debian communication happens. We're also there to support people running Debian events. You're at one right now, you might have noticed. Finally, we have been delegated to advise on interpreting the code of conduct. We are not the final say on this, but we have had quite a lot of discussion about it with lots of people. We like to think that we have good ideas on this, and other teams, other people, the DPL, whoever, will often come to us to ask for, how do you think this actually applies? Now, an important point, as you'll see at the bottom, is and this is paraphrased, go and have a look in the link at the bottom for the most recent delegation update, because that's where this is all coming from. We do not have any explicit power to enforce decisions. That is by design. Instead, we work with other teams in Debian. We will give advice on how we think things are going. We will share concerns with those teams. For example, if we think somebody is misbehaving or whatever, and it will go from there. Some of the teams have given us explicit power as part of their setup. An example is the Debian mailing lists. A couple of us are active mailing list moderators, and that works quite well. But that's not necessarily the same across the project. So, with that, there you go. As I said, there are only a few slides. Let's bring people in and let's have a discussion. Hands up here who hasn't seen this before. Hands up here who doesn't know what we do. Okay, that makes life easy. Hands up here who thinks we should be doing something different. I knew that was going to work slightly differently. Can we give the DPL a mic?
So you very likely saw Enrico's talk the other day about DAM and reducing responsibilities within DAM, like making decisions on when someone should get a warning, when someone should get expelled from a project. That clearly shouldn't be with DAM at all. And it doesn't seem like it should fit with the community team based on basically on your charter. So where do you think that should lie? What should we do? Do you think we should change what community team is, or do you think we need yet another group of people to handle decisions on when someone gets a warning, when we decide to kick them out of the project, that kind of thing? Because I wouldn't want it with a DPL. It's just, it's unfair that it's one person's responsibility, and at the same time, we wouldn't want that concentrated with one person in the project.
Thanks for giving us an easy first question, dude.
What's your favourite flavour of ice cream?
Well, yes. So that is a really good question. Andy, Shruti, Molly, I've already spoken too much. Does anybody want to respond to that?
Well, I will say my favorite flavor of ice cream is black raspberry, which is hard to find outside of New England. This is a really great question that I've never thought about before. And I have some initial opinions, which is, I think things are collaborative decisions, in the sense that someone is ultimately making a decision, but I believe that in previous times people have been asked to leave, have been expelled from Debian. A lot of constituents were involved. A lot of people were involved in consulting on that and being asked about it and their experiences. I think it's unreasonable to vote, and that would be kind of weird and creepy. Part of me thinks it would be really great to have a more formal process around it, and have when you get X number of warnings, you'll be expelled, and then you can appeal, and then that will be a different decision. So those are some initial thoughts I have.
I think instead of falling it into one team, maybe more than one team take up the responsibility, collaborate, and discuss, and when such incidents come, maybe DAM, CT, or maybe further, if we are having one more team, or whoever, we can have more teams discussing instead of it falling on one team. That's my personal opinion.
So for me, the way it works is that the community team is broadly collaborative. We talk things over, but we do trust each other's judgment. And I think expanding that out, we would work happily with other teams, we do, and we would trust each other's judgment, I think is the way it seems to me. That's the way it seems to work at the moment.
I agree that it could come from feedback of multiple teams, and ideally it should, but ultimately it needs to be someone's responsibility to actually issue such a warning or banning, and currently we don't have a good body for that, and at some point we're going to have such a body for that, where it doesn't matter who it is.
Sure.
But even if someone advises that it needs to go somewhere for someone to take action on. Otherwise, nothing is just going to happen.
Yeah. It's a difficult one.
Molly has her hand.
Oh, Molly.
So, spitballing here, just throwing out an idea. How would you feel if it was, or how would people feel if it was a meta committee? So there was someone from DAM on it, and someone from the technical committee on it, and the DPL on it, and someone from the community team, and maybe somebody else who was elected from the masses of Debian developers to be involved in a decision. So you're having different views from different committees represented.
Sounds like an option.
Yeah, an elected committee, I think, would make sense. Maybe we should elect some more roles, even if it's just confirmation votes within Debian, but yeah, makes sense.
Daniel.
There's a saying in management is the worst solution if you have no idea is to always create yourself another committee. So I wouldn't do that. I think there's the warning side of things is there are communication channels that we have, which is like mailing lists, the bug tracker, physical communication at a conference, and there's always people responsible for these. So if there's a misbehavior situation at DebConf, there's a DebConf committee, there's a local team, we will have to act on that. If there's somebody misbehaving on the mailing list, there's the list masters, they act on that. If somebody's abusing the BTS, there's the people running the BTS, they act on that. To me, that is sufficient. I think we do not have to have a meta way of having somebody who trolls multiple channel be kind of consistently punished or something like that. The channels can do that, and that's fine. DAM will eventually be getting aware of this because, of course, these things are communicated to the people, and they typically will get a CC or see the communication on the various mailing lists or so. And at some point in time, if there's the situation that the community team has talked to that person and they got their like third ban from list masters, that DAM has to take a decision with their project membership. And this is, in my view, well within the realms of DAM's responsibility. I understand that Enrico says, well, we only want to do the admin stuff. But that only leads to the point that somebody else needs to take the decision and then they do the admin stuff. And I don't think that makes sense because DAM is basically created in the constitution to be responsible for who is a project member and who is not. It's not like file the ticket with DSA. It is like decide what it takes to be a project member and decide when that is not fulfilled anymore and somebody needs to be removed. And I think taking this responsibility out of DAM just creates somebody else who needs to do it, which you can then call DAM 2, and that doesn't make any sense. So I think this needs to stay with them. What they don't want to do with good reasoning is they don't want to do all of the stuff before. They don't want to be the arbiters, they don't want to be the ones that have to try to negotiate between various parties' positions and so on. And I think this is where we have an informal but delegated body like the community team that can act anywhere, they can act on this conference, they can act on mailing lists and so on and so on. So I think that is pretty well covered. And I don't see much stuff that needs to be done in between. It should be the total exception that we have to deal with this on an enforcement basis anyways. And for this exception to create another meta committee or something like this is, in my view, just not useful.
Over Jonathan.
I'll let Andy go first because I think he stuck his hand up first. And now he's frozen.
No. Andy Cater, did you want to speak?
Yes. So, effectively, a lot of people who disagree with the decision from DAM or warning from community team want a much more legal procedure. They want a much tighter, regulated appeals process that can go on for how many steps. It's never enough steps for them. I do worry slightly that sometimes we are not precise enough and we don't make our decisions clear enough, and at other times it takes us too long to do anything. Is there a happy medium?
Yeah. Jonathan.
So I'd like to agree that the reason DAM have ended up kicking people out of the project, for want of a better term, is because it is their role, right? Ultimately, they are the Debian account managers. They make a decision about who is and who isn't in Debian. That's what they do. They don't create the accounts. They don't put things in the keyring. With my keyring main hat on, I do the technical work of adding a key to the keyring based on a decision that is made by DAM. And that is why we have ended up with Dan making the decision about who we should kick out of the project, who should be removed either temporarily or permanently from project privileges, because that's their role. The piece we miss is, generally for admitting someone to the project, the AMs do all of the work, right? What gets handed to Dan at the end is a nice, concise set of information about how well someone is technically, and then Dan basically look it over and go, yep, that looks good, and it's okay. They're not doing the work, they're doing the checking and making sure the policies and procedures have been followed. The AM is the one who course corrects when someone isn't ready. The AM is the person who has to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't approve this because you're not quite there yet. The AM is the person who says, well, you're not quite right in that. Can you elaborate a little bit more? We don't have an equivalent. And I don't have a suggestion for what that looks like, but it's the piece we're missing, right? We don't have an equivalent for this person is getting out of line in the project and is not adhering to our standards and guidelines and our community. It shouldn't be DAM who has to do the work of proving whether or not. And that, what they're being expected to at the moment is they're the ones who have to provide all of the proof and go, hey, you guys did this, you're bad, you're evil, prove that you're okay, and all of this level of checks. That shouldn't be DAM's responsibility. DAM should be handed a portfolio of, here is why, here are the attempts that have been made to rectify this is not working, it's now time for you to do your thing. And the course correction piece that Enrico talked about in his talk doesn't belong with DAM. By the time it gets there, it is too late, it's too heavy-handed. So I don't think we need a committee. I'm not quite sure what we need, but we have to understand that what we're missing is, for getting into the project, there is this process with some hand-holding, and we don't have the equivalent for trying to fix someone's behaviour in the project that is a more gentle, trying to be collaborative. It's not a warning, it's a, hey, let's figure this one out. And I think that's the nuance of the difference, why we're missing it. Because I completely agree, it's DAM's responsibility to make the ultimate decision. But I don't think they should make that cold. I think they should basically be handed something that's very much a, yeah, okay, that all makes sense, that's logical, this has been tried, this is all good.
Should we get front desk to help? As they're already the people who feed DAM.
To add to it, besides collecting material and so on, it doesn't belong to DAM to decide a vision for what the Debian community should look like 5 years from now. But based on that decision, we can make decision of whether a person, how do we commit to expecting that people match specific expectations. And it's not encoded in the code of conduct, that sort of things. There's a number of people in Debian that are constantly walking some gray area, and somebody needs to decide how gray is that gray area, how long walking that gray area is long enough, how much do we still assume that they are in good faith, or how much they've been told long enough that this is unacceptable and they've ignored, how much they reiterate stuff. There's many cases that could go either way. I may have a personal opinion as a project member, but I'm not like entitled to turn it into a DAM decision automatically in various gray area cases. There's people I certainly wouldn't want to have. There's people in Debian I certainly wouldn't go out and drink with, or wouldn't want to invite in my house. And some of them definitely belong in Debian, and some of them, sadly, probably not. But it's bigger than me to take that decision.
I won't use any names, but everybody will know what I'm referring to. On a recent appeal event, I was part of the committee that had to decide on the appeal. I've signed up for being an AM. I haven't signed up for that. And in that particular instance, it was not so hard to take the decision, but I still haven't signed up for it. So the suggestion to use somebody from the technical committee, I think, is not the best thing we could do. We should make sure that the people who go in that kind of committee agree in advance to do it and haven't signed up for something else.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah, what have been going around is that, well, of course, we think of the highest profile cases, and that skews what we say and what we think right now. But I think we should be thinking on the whole role of the community team, because, well, most of the participation of the community team, you're not here to say we should expel this person or not expel this person, but to help the whole process, to make Debian welcoming at all moments, at all times, in all kinds of situations. So maybe bringing back the focus into that can help, like, avoid getting to the situation where, well, we're all talking about extreme cases. We should not focus on extreme cases if we could think otherwise. I mean, I'm thinking about, well, the particular interaction I had with you recently. Again, no need in telling specifics, but I requested, because of a discussion we had in the technical committee, for some kind of mediation with somebody who had a maybe perturbing pattern. And, well, yeah, the answer is we don't do mediation. And I know that doing mediation is a very hard task that requires specific skills that, and time and whatever that we may not have. But I would like maybe to try to cover that, and in that way try to avoid getting to extreme situations.
So what do we do?
Yeah, well, it sounds like it makes sense to not have DAM do the work of collecting the various aspects of some misbehavior that may lead to a ban or expulsion or whatever. It is a very infrequent process, so it's something that does not justify, in my view, and apparently that's a bit consensus, a separate committee. So the question is, like, who could be doing that? There's front desks, there's the AMs that do the process into the project. So maybe they can be asked whether they would be willing to do the way out of the project as well. It's infrequent. Not everybody has to sign up for it. I'm with Zigo. You shouldn't be getting just another job because congrats, you got delegated, and this is the few things we can also pile up on you because you've been there. And then we need somebody to trigger this process, and that would be, to me, the community team, because you are basically seeing behavior, positive and negative, across channels, because you're the first contact where people complain, you talk to the people and so on. And when you see, okay, this is a pattern that goes beyond what we're willing to manage, we don't see any improvement, we don't see any willingness to basically kind of correct behavior so it's acceptable to everybody else, then you could trigger this process, and basically an AM would be delegated, like it is now done with the software that we're using, to look into this case and basically see whether there is enough pattern of behavior there that it would justify to be escalated to DAM level to take a decision. And then they, of course, should still talk to the person again. I think being handed a decision ex cathedra without being talked to is not good, even if it is a kind of last resort effort. We should do that. So there's, again, one situation where DAM has to talk to the people, but only one. It's like, you know, this is the third step of escalation, which we're now at. You know, would you want to change your behavior now, or do you want to be handed the result of being unwilling to cooperate, although you have had enough abuse? So that sounds to me like the natural position where to allocate this without creating more bodies and more, you know, administration around it.
So, Molly.
Just very quickly, the appeal explicitly says, sorry.
Few things. The first thing is, so we're about 25 minutes after the hour. I'm happy to continue this discussion. We didn't really talk about procedure for this session very well, or very much. So there's the question of, do we want to switch to a different question or a different topic, just in the concept of time. That being said, I'm happy to continue talking about this.
Okay. So just to react on what you said, the appeal procedure explicitly says we should not interact with the person who's appealing. So when it happened, I exchanged with that person and I was told, stop, don't do that. So in that case, we knew the situation. I'm foreseeing that maybe sometimes we won't, and then how do I make a decision if I can't talk to that person?
Jonathan.
May I answer?
He's had his hand up for a while. Oh, sorry.
So, okay, I'll just keep it quick. So, I think we're getting to a plan to handling the extreme cases perhaps better. This, I'd call it the reverse IAM idea. Makes a lot of sense. Just to repeat my point from Enrico's talk yesterday, what we are missing is something that brings the community team's role of explaining the code of conduct or spreading the word of the code of conduct better. We need to bring that into the wider community and to have some larger set of ambassadors, or however we want to call them, who have the official role to keep an eye on that, who should be respected for doing that, so people should tend to listen to them. And so my idea would just to be find something like maybe 30, 40 people that are spread over all the sub-communities we have, such that whenever someone goes slightly overboard, they can try to talk to them, look, there's no problem, but maybe consider being nicer next time. And if we try to keep doing that, everyone will behave a bit nicer, and maybe we are not getting that many extreme cases in the future. So that would be my, let's say, level 1 idea, and now you can keep discussing the level 5 idea. So I think Noodles was next.
I've got a couple of points. First is Zigo's point about the appeals process, which I was also involved with. I think that's a very far down the line bit, and I think what we're talking about would be different than that. And you would need to be able to interact with the person under question, right? If we're talking about corrective action and trying to embrace someone in the fold of the project, then absolutely you need to have a conversation with them before it ever gets to the point that there's an appeal going on. It's a course correction much earlier on than we get to. I think, having suggested, I'm really in favour of the reverse AM idea, but the difficulty as I see it is when you go through the AM process, you willingly engage in the process of trying to become part of the project, right? There is a mutual decision on both sides of, hey, we'd like to get you into the project, and I'd like to be in the project. And what we're talking about here is not necessarily a mutual decision, right? This is one side is going, hey, I'd like to help you stay in the project, and the other side is not coming along with, I understand I have exhibited behaviours that are not compatible with the project, and I'd like to learn how to fix that, but quite often, very much their back is going to be up from the start. And no matter what way we do interventions, that's always going to be a problem, and I as an AM don't have the skills to start that conversation. I don't think we as a project have the skills to start that conversation, and we need some people who do, and I don't know how we do that, but I think that's the difficulty, right? We don't have the skills to do the gentle, hey, how about, and I think that's the problem we got. In terms of the community team's role in doing the guidance and whatever, there's a little bit about, again, going down the reverse AM route where the community team is front desk for corrective behaviour, right? They are the go-to for the advice about how to handle situations in the way that front desk would be the go-to for an AM to say about getting someone into Debian. But again, I think that's too far down the line. I don't know how we start the gentle conversation. And the final point, and then I promise I'll shut up for a while. I think if we had the community team 20 years ago, very unfortunately, there will be a number of people who are members of our community at the minute who would not have passed the bar to be part of our community. They would not have wanted to because they are vehemently against the idea that we have a code of conduct, or they would have exhibited behaviours very early on that we wouldn't have accepted them. We have a problem where we need to fix that in order to make the rest of the community, and that's going to be painful. And again, I don't have an answer for how we do that or how that happens, but we have to accept as a project that that's the case.
Andy.
I just want to remind that we just have 14-ish minutes left, so if some other topics would come up, I want to read.
I have at least one more topic to get to.
Yep.
So. Andy, did you have a point? Or Daniel?
No, Andy wanted to say something first.
Andy, are you still there?
No, this Andy. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just very quickly. We have difficulty enough with 6 community team members. I think it's hard to find ambassadors, and although I'd love to, I think that's going to be a hard thing to find. In general, I think people take gentle warnings fairly well, but I don't know what to do with the people that don't. The people that really perhaps shouldn't be in the project any longer, one way or another, either for their benefit or for the benefit of the rest of the project. That's the hard question that we face every day, week, month.
Yeah. And I echo Andy's response. So I love Christoph's idea with the ambassadors. My only worry is finding the people who volunteer to do it. I mean, if people are volunteering to help, we'd love to hear from them, we'd love to see them already having an effect, but we're not seeing it yet. If we can make that more explicit, that would be great. Exactly how to manage it then is a further conversation, of course.
So my idea is that we pick people that are around anyway. So if I'm on IRC all day, I can as well just look for behavior that is there. So ideally, this would not cause anyone to have an extra load or an extra head. So it should just happen naturally where people are anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
It was just to say exactly the same point I made in Enrico's conversation earlier in the week, is it is incumbent on every member of Debian to stand up and be counted and call this action out.
Yeah.
It shouldn't need to get to the community team. If everybody stands up and knows everybody in the project has got your back, then that is the point where the light corrective, this isn't acceptable, hey dude, just calm down a bit, take a break. If we all do that when something is out of order, then it should never get to the point where somebody needs to be expelled or pushed out or corrective action taken.
And then escalate to us if it didn't work. Yeah. So, Molly.
Steve, if there's something else you want to get to, I would say that should be the final comment in this discussion, or maybe we take one more and then switch gears.
So, I think we've had some really good discussion and we've got a lot of good ideas around this, but let's move on.
I'll add, one quick final comment.
Go for it.
We'll make some sort of proposal. I'm telling the community team that we will construct some sort of proposal based on this discussion.
Yeah. So we're already planning a meetup, a sprint with DPL, DAM and community team for some point later in the year. It might be October. We're actually getting that organised at the moment, and we, obviously this and a whole bunch of other ideas we want to beat up and see what we can do with them. So, moving on to my next point, I'm going to be stealing Jonathan's thunder a bit, or maybe Jonathan would like to talk about this, or maybe Enrico, as he's been key to this. Both of you, come on. I am not one to normally drink in a DebConf session, But today we have had some absolutely amazing news. A long-running problem that we have had has been harassment by an external group, an external entity who has been abusing the Debian Community domain to post the worst kind of crap about Debian and its people.
We can call him by his name.
Go for it.
But would we want
Sure.
to? Yeah, I mean, Daniel Pocock, as we have an official statement from the project, has been trying to hurt Debian in all sorts of ways since we removed this membership. And one of the main vehicles of harassment towards Debian and other community was the Debian.community domain. Today we got the decision from the WIPO panel that decided on the case that we raised. Debian is going to take control of the Debian community domain.
Yes. So we don't expect this is the end of the fight at all. However, it is a big win. We've been working on this, the three of us, for a very long time, and it's, you know, we'll take the wins where we can. Tonight, I'm prepared to buy drinks for everybody at the party. Put it that way. I'm happy. Let's celebrate when we can.
I think everyone in this room should buy drinks for Jonathan. Incredibly hard for a very long time, doing incredibly emotionally laborious work. As someone who's been deeply affected by this, I cannot thank you enough. And anyone who buys them a drink or a snack on my behalf, that'd be great.
It's been a lot of hard work. It's been a long road. We know there's more road to come, but as I said, we'll take a win when we can. Cheers, everyone. So, do we have any other points to discuss?
Shruti. Yay.
Oh.
I thought you were going to say something.
Perhaps a question for DPL DAM community team at large. It seems that we tend to react late, and I wonder if you're not at the point where the project should kick people out earlier, because we have some people that are, as was said, we have some people that are currently in the project that should, given our current norms, not be in the project anymore, and as was also said, it might be costly, but perhaps we should just kick these people out and have a better community, maybe at the expense of some parts of the technical side of the project not being supported anymore, but we'll figure things out. And if half of the project leaves over that and creates another project, then so be it. But we would have protected our community. I have no idea how to get there, but I think we all have a small list of people we should kick out, and perhaps there is large overlap of our individual lists, and if one person or two persons are on everyone's list, then we should find ways to kick this person or these persons out. But ideas welcome.
Definitely. Encouraging people who clearly don't fit with the rest of the project to reconsider their membership is something that we keep on talking about, but we don't do very much. There's reasons for that. It's a really difficult, it's a hard thing to do to kick someone out. And I totally feel with the dam, Enrico and the rest of the dams, that's one of the reasons why people don't do it. It's draining, it's a negative thing to do. However, you're right, it's the only way to make the project a better place is to actually force people to engage with us better and behave the way we expect. We have many hands. So, Molly.
Andy expressed interest in speaking first. So.
Okay, Andy, you first then.
The only thing I would say, it's horrendously draining on everybody to kick somebody out. particularly if they've been a valued contributor over years. But there may come a time when it's better for them as well as better for the wider project. I'm going to flip it slightly and say there may be a situation where somebody who has been out of the project for a while wants to come back, having reformed, having changed their opinions, or just wants to show better behaviour. Do we have a threshold on that? Because that's actually the harder thing. And we sometimes figure skate around people who get a ban for a while, come back, get a ban for a while, come back, and it goes on.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, in almost every case when DAM have kicked people out, there has been the explicit offer of, we don't want to lose you, please go away and, and have a break, come back when you're ready, and, we'd love to re-engage with you. Those are not empty promises, those are not empty offers. We genuinely want to have the people who spent time in our community, so long as they do genuinely reform, and that's always the issue. Wanda, you had your hand up.
Hi. Will you talk?
Ron, you go first, and then I'll say something.
It's another topic. It's a question. If you have some thoughts or some suggestions for unofficial spaces that use Debian name as Telegram groups, I believe this kind of space, they are under the same idea of the official groups, but I believe it's hard to see what is happening these unofficial groups. But should we apply the same code of conduct there if the administrator of this unofficial group should apply the same code of conduct that they are using Debian name? If you have discussed about that, or if you have some thoughts about that.
So what I wanted to say about the previous proposal, and then I'll make a quick one on that, the most recent comment, is that my intuition, my first response is not liking the idea of just telling people to leave. Part of that is, I don't like a lot of the laws of my country, but I follow them, and I'm okay following them even if I don't like them. And I've made that decision. So I think there are a lot of people who will follow codes of conduct and community norms, not because they like them, but because the trade-off is worth it. So I think that's a discussion I'd be really interested in having, both as a researcher, academic, and as a practitioner, if anyone wants to talk about it more. Back onto the topic of affiliated spaces. If someone else wants to comment on that, please go ahead.
So for me, if you're going to have it depends very much on the group. If you claim to be affiliated with Debian, then you should be following at least something close to our code of conduct, because otherwise, that reflects badly on us. If you are just a random group and you say, oh, we like Debian, we like what they do, but this is our group, then of course that is up to your group. But I would strongly recommend, for the sake of sanity, follow something similar. Our code of conduct is really not that hard to follow. Basically, it's don't be a dick, be reasonable to other people, and try and get along. There's a lot of words around it, but that's all it boils down to. And ideally in any social group, regardless of the background, regardless of any technology or whatever involved, I think those are reasonable guidelines on how to get on with other people. It's up to you.
One of maybe my last blog entry that I wrote was about active versus passive exclusion within communities, and all of this discussion here sort of boils down to that. To create an inclusive community, you have to be willing to actively exclude people from there. And what one of my partners pointed out when we talked about that, she said, yes, of course you need to be willing to exclude someone if they are overstepping boundaries repeatedly and things like that. But I'm coming back to the point that also Andrew pointed out, what happens afterwards? Is there a way back for the person to sort of work it out, what was the reason and change? And this is something that we need to have in mind, and then it's easier to kick people out if we have sort of laid out the way for people to come back.
That's a very good point. Jonathan, I think we're just about running on time at this point, aren't we?
Yes, sorry for grabbing it at the end, but I do like the idea of giving someone a chance back and redemption. Redemption is always a good thing, but when it comes to the point where someone is permanently banned, like our previous examples, it's lifetime. They're not coming back. There's no redemption for them. They can go collaborate with other projects or upstream, but not in Debian. It's over.
Yeah.
No, the point I was making is if there is in general a way to come back, it's easier to kick people out, to get their chills, think about it, what they happen.
You know that
and
it's not permanent. Then that gives more of a chance, totally, yes. Enrico has his hand up, and that must be the very last thing we have.
Indeed, if actions happens earlier, it's more likely that people have a chance to come back. Even in the case of Pocock, when we expelled him, we said, hey, what you're doing is way out of line. You can't do it with a Debian hat, so we're taking that away. But you cool down and, come back. Well, he never did, so we know how it ended. But that's a thing. So some situations are so long time entrenched and action should have been taken maybe years before that they become insane. Some things that happen are so out of line that it's a lot of loss of trust that will be really hard to regain. And I'm thinking about another old-time conference dinner. But in general, giving the feedback, what you're doing is not if the feedback is what you're doing is not acceptable, we are acting on it now. It's recoverable. If it gets worse and ossifies and so on, then I don't know.
Yeah. Right. We should stop that. Thank you all for coming along. I hope people were taking notes as well. I will send out a summary, and as I said, we've got more stuff to talk about. Awesome session. Thank you all.